The two of them stopped, as though they had both had enough of laughing. The priest turned his back on Suzuki Satoru and headed to the town, while the captain stood before Suzuki Satoru once more. "Forgive me, Satoru Dono, old bone merchant. Now then, please allow us to inspect your luggage." "By all means. However, I have almost none, as I came to make purchases." Suzuki Satoru and Kino dismounted, and in turn a group of people who looked slightly different from the gate guards, but who were all business got onto the wagon. They were assessors, in charge of checking luggage and levying tolls. 90% of the wagon's contents was grain, though it made up 90% by volume. It was only a tenth of the wagon's loaded weight. Even if one went by volume, the tax on this quantity of grain would be very light. Suzuki Satoru and Kino underwent a brief body search to ensure they were not carrying contraband. Just then, the employees who were searching the wagon came back. One of them was holding a small chest. "Could you open the lock on this treasure chest?" "Certainly." Suzuki Satoru opened it, and the gleaming of gold spilled forth. The box contained 500 pieces of gold trade currency. There was also a leather bag inside with quite a number of gemstones. This was a large sum of money, but it was an unremarkable amount for something in the possession of a trader from afar. The employee rolled up his sleeve and reached his arm in to check the chest's interior. There's nothing inside. And there are no hidden compartments in the wagon. The only thing is that the horse is not a living creature. It is a golem horse. Can the old bones really control such things? Of course. There are golem horses who do not need to eat, drink, or excrete. They do not quail before frightening monsters. Does it not make them perfect for transportation? The fact that you don't have these is why you're Hicks. Suzuki Satoru went on to make digs at them, as though he wanted people to tell him to give it a rest. This too was part of the act, and he internally apologized to them. After the employees heard this, they gathered around for a discussion. They were probably talking about how much to tax the golem horse, since there was no precedent for it. After a brief talk, they decided to tax it the same as any other horse, and discuss the rest with the marquis later. After paying the toll for Suzuki Satoru, Kino, a horse, and the grain, they received a permit to enter the city. The captain addressed Suzuki Satoru as he took up the reins, and prepared to urge his horse on. Yes. I have to say this. Trader of the old bones. I'll get to it. It would be better not to reveal your face in this town. And why would that be? Is it because you think people will mistake me for the undead? That they will confuse me with the... I get it. The captain waved off Suzuki Satoru, as the latter was raising his voice, in an extremely annoyed way. A case of mistaken identity would be very bad. That said, well, it's very natural for us to hate the undead. It seems your reaction is a little excessive. Did something happen? Indeed it did. However, that was over 20 years ago. A great deal of undead once invaded this nation, and it was known as the Undead Disaster. That incident caused a great deal of damage, and while this city was not directly affected by it, we still have people who lost family and friends here. Do you understand? The Undead Disaster, you say? It seemed to be related to the incident in Kino's country that had turned its people into zombies. That incident had not just taken place in Kino's country. The zombification had affected everything within 250 kilometers. The conclusion that Suzuki Satoru had drawn over years of investigation was that it had led to the downfalls of 4 nations. However, this country was far away from there, and there was another country in between them. Also, the zombies of that city were simply wandering around. Why had they overflowed to this country? Perhaps it was too early to jump to conclusions. And that's not all. If you head northwest from here and to the next country over, you'll be able to see the same or more undead. It seems there were too many of them to deal with. It was in the opposite direction where Suzuki Satoru and Kino had come from, in the direction of Kino's country. Suzuki Satoru asked a roundabout question. I feel there must be some reason why all those undead beings appeared. Was there some kind of great war? It's common for corpses left on the battlefield to start moving. The captain shook his head. I'm not sure about that. All I know is that the undead suddenly appeared. There are rumors saying that it was caused by some spell going out of control, although they're just rumors. I hear the neighboring countries have deployed their troops along the border to defend against undead attacks. Suzuki Satoru did not think as he replied. This country's leadership was still fairly intelligent, in that they had not taken this opportunity to invade their neighbors who were holding off the undead for them. No, the undead were their common enemy, so it was likely that they would have sent their own forces to back them up. In any case, that's why we're so cautious of the undead. So I hope you won't do anything to make others misunderstand you. Very well. My apologies, Suzuki Satoru coughed lightly. I understand what you mean. Then, I shall cover up my face with a mask, but could you do me a favor? What is it? If there is a high-end inn that you would recommend, could I trouble you to send a man over to help me run an errand? Tell them that a trader of the old bones will be coming over to lodge with them. That will save a lot of problems. After all, most inns don't take suspicious guests in masks. The captain's face nodded briefly. He probably did not want to have gate guards serve as runners for a mere merchant. If you help me out, it'll improve the opinion of us old bones about this city, you know. Ah, very well then. It can be helped. I'll give it as an apology for mistaking you for one of the undead. Or, he shouted to a nearby guard. You, go over to the canopy inn. Upon receiving his orders, the soldier ran out. After hearing the captain tell him how to go to the inn, Suzuki Satoru produced a leather pouch and handed a gold coin to the captain. I am very grateful. Go buy some drinks for your boys. I see. You old bones sure are different from the undead. Take care, little me. I mean madam. Thank you. Kino, who had been silent all this while, nodded to him, and a wagon passed through the city gates. The inn was huge. This did not refer to its architectural footprint, but the overall size of the entire building. Each door was at least 4 meters tall. However, it still would not be able to accommodate large races like giants, and so to put it bluntly, their attempts to appeal to everyone failed to win over anyone. Suzuki Satoru pushed open the weighty doors. Contrary to how they appeared, the doors swung open easily. He had not used much force. Even a child should have been able to push them open. This was probably an in-cum restaurant, given that there were people sitting around and drinking in the middle of the day. They looked surprised to see Suzuki Satoru's mask. He ignored their reaction and then he noticed the bartender. I see, no wonder the inn was built so large, Suzuki Satoru mused. The bartender was a massive man standing over 2.5 meters, and he had a massive horn protruding from his forehead which pointed to the sky. He was massively muscled, and his well-developed pectorals bulged out his white uniform. He did not look like the owner so much as a bouncer, and truth to be told he might have been just that. Before him, Suzuki Satoru was like a child again. He walked straight towards the man and got up onto one of the stools beside the bar with some effort. I'd like a room for 2, for 1 night. Will that be a problem? Not at all, and I have to apologize, little man, our chairs here aren't too suitable for smaller folk. Is he mocking me? Suzuki Satoru thought. However, his face implied that he was not doing so, which meant that he was being sincere. It's fine, don't worry about it. Given the size of your little buddy, I could recommend you a few other good inns, but those wouldn't fit you too well, little man. There are also inns suitable for big guys for you, but they're of a lower standard. If you don't mind, I can tell you about them. I have no intention of lowering the standards of my accommodations. While there were many ways to entertain oneself during a journey, living in luxury was essential for the pair, since they could not enjoy good food. Therefore, they always lodged in the highest-end inns whenever they went to a city. Is that so? Then, how about the room? Even the bed in a single room would be enough for the 2 of you, which would also be cheaper. There's no need for that. I am not short of money. Give me a double room. The innkeeper whistled. I wish I could do whatever I wanted, just like you. Go ahead and throw your money at me then. Let's see. The innkeeper bent down, and when he came up again he had a key in his hand. Take this. Oh yes, may I ask how you 2 honored guests arrived here? We took a covered wagon. The soldier who came by earlier is taking care of it. Our goods are only a few bags of grain. Oh, then how about the beast pulling your wagon? Feed will be extra, and so is having a groom take care of it. It is a golem horse. It doesn't need care of feeding. Huh. The innkeeper suddenly exclaimed. So there were things like that. I guess I'm not up to date on these things. Well done. Suzuki Satoru could sense that the patrons who had been quietly drinking at first were now all focused on him. Had the topic of a golem caught their interest, or had they unconsciously looked over in response to the innkeeper raising his voice? They haven't looked away after a while, so it should be the former, Suzuki Satoru thought. If it were the latter, they would have lost interest quickly. Since they had not looked away, it would seem they knew something about golems. Is it because there are golems working in the city, or have all travelers heard of such things? Acquiring this golem horse cost me a pretty penny. Oh, how much are the room fees? Ah yes, could you omit the cost for meals? We're planning to head outside to sample the local delicacies. The innkeeper was briefly suspicious, but then he accepted Suzuki Satoru's explanation immediately. Perhaps he had remembered the guard's description of Suzuki Satoru. Ah, so that's how it's going to be, little man. Yeah, that might be for the best. You might be able to hold it in, but I think your little buddy won't be able to take it. Won't be able to take it. Well, our portions are enough to fill our bellies. A big helping's around 2 kilos. Can you finish that much? Impossible. The innkeeper laughed a loud wahaha as he heard Suzuki Satoru's prompt reply. After that he stated the price, which was fairly low compared to all the others they had encountered during the course of their journey. Now, whether that price was fair remained to be seen. After all, the prices of things varied from city to city, and that would also be affected by the room they were given. Matters became even more complicated once one considered that this was a major city on the Marquis' domain. However, top-end inns in national capitals typically had very few free rooms, and the expenses of staying in one for a night would be 5 to 10 times as much as this place. After asking why the price was so low, the answer he received was, "This is without the cost of food." It would seem this inn not only provided a large amount of food, but they were also very confident in the quality of their cuisine. Suzuki Satoru suddenly felt a pang of regret over his inability to eat. No, to be precise, he felt the same way every time he went to a new country, a new market, or a new plaza. Kino. That one word was more than enough for Kino to understand Suzuki Satoru's intentions. She produced a pouch and handed over the amount that the innkeeper had asked for. Needless to say, it was just a deposit. Come again. The innkeeper handed over a massive key, and then briefly told Suzuki Satoru about the room's location. After that, Suzuki Satoru and Kino climbed the stairs leading to their room on the second floor.